I want to finish up Parshas Terumah today. I just want to tell you a very interesting medrash that I saw. Reb Chaim Kanievsky with a pshat in the medrash, very interesting pshat in the medrash. Do me a favor, would you move in your mechutz lamachne over there? You know, you don't have tzaras. You know, come on in and join us. You're not excommunicated, all right? You know, the fact that you're Rabbi Metal on Shear, you know, there are worse things, you know. It's, Sir Chaim Kanievsky said like this, there's an interesting medrash. There's a medrash Tanchuma that says there was a guy who had a father, and his father was an alcoholic. The guy was a Talmud Chacham, and his father was an alcoholic. There's no story in the medrash. And the guy was embarrassed. His father would get drunk, and then he'd go out there, and he'd be lying out in the street in various in the mud, in the submerged in various bodily fluids, and the kids would be throwing stuff at him and laughing at him, the drunk, you know, that sort of thing. And he was bothered by his embarrassment for the whole family. So one day they're walking together, and his father happened to be sober, and they're walking together, and they see a drunk. And this drunk's lying out in the gutter, and the kids are kicking him and laughing at him in the mud and throwing stuff at him. And the guy feels, I got a golden opportunity. He says, Dad, see that guy over there? He says, yeah. He says, that's what you look like when you get drunk. He goes, really? He goes, yeah, really. He goes, wow. So he walks over to the drunk, and he bends over, and he says something to him. So his comes back to the son, says to the father, what did you say? Father said, I asked him, where'd you get such good booze? Right? That's what the medrash. Right? That's what the medrash says. It's a medrash, right? The question is, what's the medrash trying to teach us? I mean, good. It's an interesting story. You got all these funny midrashim. You know, they got some interesting midrashim. What's the medrash? They weren't writing Aesop's fables over here. You know, they weren't telling us stories for the sake of telling us stories. Chazal wrote a medrash. I think it's a medrash Tanchuma. Well, what's it's one of the classic midrashim. What are they obviously trying to communicate an idea? So somebody suggested, one of his sons suggested to Rabbi, or his son-in-law suggested to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, the lesson of the medrash is, it's in keeping, there's a statement in the Gemara that a person sees everybody's flaws except his own. Person sees everybody else's shortcomings except his own. If you gave me a blank sheet of paper and I had to fill it out and write down the shortcomings of all my friends, neighbors, students, everybody else, I'd fill up pages, I'd run out of ink. Right? My own shortcomings? Well, I remember about 2 years ago on Friday night, I remember that when I made the bracha on the hamotzi, I think I forgot to move the knife over the bread symbolically. I'm trying to do tshuva. That's about all I could think of. You know, that's about as far as it goes. Anything else, you know, it's like they had one of those mindless actresses on one of these talk shows, you know, and they ask about her career. And then the guy says to her, tell us one thing negative about yourself. What's your worst trait? You know, oh, I'm too kind. It's one of those. They had one of those mindless actresses. She once said, "I told you there's a disaster in Indonesia or something." Yeah, they're interviewing her about her career, and then at the guy says, "And what do you say about that disaster, that earthquake in Indonesia?" She goes, oh, well, death is really terrible because when you die, a big part of your life is gone. Magnificent, right? Magnificent. Yeah. Stick with and don't give up your day job, lady. So what's this medrash? What is the medrash? So one of his son or one of his family members, they suggested the medrash is telling you, here a guy, your son's trying to show you your flaw. And you're looking at it, you see something completely different. A person does not look at their own flaws. Chazal's lashon, we see everybody else's flaws except our own. The truth is, if we would think about it, we'd probably find our own flaws, but we don't. We see everybody else's flaws. That's one statement. That's one approach. Reb Chaim said he thinks the medrash is telling you something else. Chaim said the medrash is telling you that before you give somebody musar, before you rebuke somebody or try to set somebody straight, think very hard, long and hard before you say it, because it may have the reverse effect. And there's a statement in the Gemara, the same way that it's a mitzvah to say that which will be listened to, it's a mitzvah to not say that which will not be listened to. don't say it. It's not going to be listened, so don't say it. I've told parents many times, parents have kids who smoke, and they say, don't smoke, I don't want you to smoke, I don't want you to this, that, and the other. I tell parents, listen, there isn't a 16-year-old in the world who smokes who doesn't know that his parents don't want him to smoke. I've never met parents who say, yeah, we hope you smoke. Every 15-year-old and 16-year-old knows that his parents don't want to. So what good does it do to harp at it and carp at it? Don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke. It's bad for you. It's bad. How bad it is. I really think a 16-year-old, that's what he's thinking about. You know what? Don't say it. There's a famous story of a Hasidic Rebbe. There's a famous Hasidic Rebbe who he knocks on the door of the president of a bank. He's a president of a certain bank, and he knocks on his door. The president looks out and says, the Rebbe's here, wow. So the Rebbe comes in, the whole Rebbe comes in. He says, Rebbe, please come in, sit down. He sits him down. The Rebbe sits there. The guy's waiting for the Rebbe, and the Rebbe doesn't say anything. The Rebbe doesn't say anything. And after 10 minutes, the Rebbe gets up, he says, good evening, and the Rebbe leaves. So the guy's like, okay. He follows the Rebbe all the way to the Rebbe's house. He says, Rebbe, why did you come to my house? He says, I came to your house to do a mitzvah. He says, what mitzvah? He says, the same way it's a mitzvah to say that which will be listened to, it's a mitzvah to not say that which won't be listened to, so I did that mitzvah. The guy says, okay, Rebbe, and if you would have said it, what would it have been? So he said, well, there's a widow, and the bank is foreclosing on her mortgage. And she asked me to ask you if you could just waive it. He said, Rebbe, I don't own the bank. I'm just the president of the bank. He says, that's why I didn't say anything. That's exactly why I didn't say anything. I did the mitzvah to not say anything. Then he waived the mortgage. And then he got it taken care of. Right? So Reb Chaim said that that's, by the way, he also read, Reb Chaim said, that's what the Medrash is teaching you. Sometimes you want to say, you don't have to say it. And when you're a parent and you have teenagers in the house, most things don't say. Most things don't say. Somebody once said, when you have teenage kids, keep one eye closed. Keep the other eye wide open. But just keep one eye closed. Right? Not everything. Most of the things that I can, let's see anyway. I mean, few and far between before you start pointing out the what he calls. Number one. Number two, somebody just said, there's a new book I recommend. There's a new art scroll book on Reb Chaim Kanievsky. This is like the authoritative book. Just came out. The Reb Chaim. So I bought it. My wife asked me to get it for her. I got it for on Erev Shabbos. So I've been nipping at the book a little bit. When I find things for her to do. Oh, can I have another piece of cake? Great, and then I take the book and start reading. And, she goes into the kitchen. I grab the book away, run away with the book. Very interesting book. Except you have to be. I told my wife I'm a little depressed from it. A little depressed from the book because I haven't done anything right in my life. I haven't learned enough Torah. I haven't done anything. You read the book. They talk about Mamash Malach. So one of the things that his wife. He asked his wife when he first got married, he likes his soup, tea, and food at room temperature, not hot. Doesn't like his tea hot. He wants tea at room temperature. Why? Because it takes it longer to drink it when it's hot. That's time he could be using for learning. Yeah, be careful, gentlemen. You can read the book. Read the book. Just be careful, right? Don't just start speaking Aramaic all of a sudden. Just it's he's sweet as sugar. He's sweet as sugar, and it's so intense. You walk away, you're just like, wow. Like, oh, oh, wow. Yeah, it's very, very. And we're talking about a man who documented. Now, this is coming from his sons, his son-in-laws, his grandsons. That they saw him and his wife, he'd be sleeping, and in his sleep he'd say, but the halacha is not like Rava. In his sleep, he'd sleep talk, right? The halacha is not like Rava, or yes, you have to separate challah, right? The various things that he was saying, and then he told his grandson he wants a cup of wine. He said, why? Because he says, I just made a siyum on Masechta Brachos in his sleep, right? This was not part of his This wasn't part of his regular cycle of things. He had a separate cycle for when he's sleeping. So he said he wanted a wine because he made a siyum on brachos. So when his grandson asked him, or his son-in-law asked him, how long did it take you? How long did the dream take? And he said, better not to ask questions. He didn't elaborate on it. Then he once made a siyum on Baba Basra from his dreaming. He made a siyum on Baba Basra from his dreaming. I dream of finishing Baba Basra. He dreamt Baba Basra, and he finished it. He made a dream. He dreamt Baba Basra. So his son said to him, Baba Basra is the longest Masechta. I mean, how could you have dreamt it in one night? He said, I didn't. He said, what? He said, the first night I dreamt up the, first few prakim. The second night I dreamt the next few prakim. The third night I dreamt the rest of it. And I made a siyum. Right? Yeah. So you're talking about, it has zero to do with us. You're talking about it has nothing to do with us. You have to read the book. It's very entertaining. I recommend it. You will get something out of it, but whatever you get, don't get depressed. Whatever you get, your uncle wasn't the Chazon Ish, right? His uncle was the Chazon Ish. His father-in-law was Rev Yashiv. His father was the Stipler, right? So your uncle wasn't the Chazon Ish, right? Your uncle was Jack, who sold cars, right? And Uncle Irv, who was in diamonds, right? And smoked a cigar. So you have to keep it all in the proper perspective. But it is a fascinating book. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, I want to finish up over here in Parshas Terumah. So back to page. We're on the Aron Kodesh. We're on the Aron Kodesh, and I want to show you a few points here because I want to get into tzedakah next week. We have to also do the Megillah. On page 446, you have these Cherubim. And 448, sorry. Top of 448. Vesisa kapores zahav tahor. First pasuk, top 4. Amasayim v'chetzi orka v'ama v'chetzi rachba. We're going to make the kapores, which is the cover of the Aron Kodesh, pure gold, 2.5 amas long, 1 amma wide, and 1.5 wide. And the Gemara says that we don't have a measure for the thickness. The Gemara says it was 1 tefach thick. Ve'asisa shnei kruvim zahav. Make the 2 kruvim of gold. Miksha ta'asa osam mishnei kitzos hakaporos. Miksha means you make them out of one piece with the kaporos. In other words, they didn't make these kruvim and then attach them. It was one piece of, what's it called, sculpted. It was sculpted out of gold. You sculpted that cover, and on the cover, sculpted out of the gold, you have these 2 kruvim that are facing each other.
Wait, real quick, what are the kruvim?
The kruvim are look at the previous page. In English, they translate it as cherubim. Those 2, they look like birds a little bit, okay, with wings reaching upwards. And then Rashi says over here, now that you've brung it up, take a look at Rashi. What are Kruvim? 4 lines from the top on 448 in the right column of Rashi. Kruvim, Demus Partsuf Tinok Lahem. They've got the image of a baby, a child. Tinok, by the way, Tinok Amari means a baby. In our term, in Torah terminology, Tinok just means a child. They've got the pure face of a child. Right? You ever look at children? Children have a pure face. Yeah. Children have a very pure face. And as they get a little older, at a certain point, you see the Yetzer Hara kick in by them. Yeah. Right? But they're still very pure. They're very pure. It's when they, it's sometime after bar mitzvah the purity starts to go. Right? When they go to public school. But the what do you call it? They have a certain purity. Children have a certain purity. I'll hold for a few minutes. The children have a certain purity. Now I want to show you something. Keep your finger on the place over here. And turn back to the book of Parashas. Turn all the way back to Per Gimel Pasuk Chaf Dalid. Page 19? Okay. Page 18. This is when Adam Arishon is kicked out of Gan Eden, page 18. If you look 5 lines from the bottom, on page 18. Vayagoresh es Adam, he chases out Adam from Gan Eden. Vayashkein mikeden legan Eden es hakruvim. On the east of Gan Eden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the kruvim. Ve'es lahat hacherva misapeches, the flaming spinning sword. So it's like, I know, Lahavdil sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings, right? But this is the flaming, which I've never read it, I never saw the movie, but I just know people talked about it a lot. The flaming spinning sword, Lishmar is Deretz Eitz HaChaim, to keep people away from the Eitz HaChaim. So you got these 2 kruvim at the east of Eden, in case you ever have an idea to go to invade and get to the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. So you're going to have to get past these 2 kruvim with a flaming spinning sword. Gentlemen, I recommend not. Right? That's it. Now, what are these kruvim in Gan Eden? Take a look at Rashi on page 18. Very interesting Rashi here. Left column, 7 lines from the top. Left column, 7 lines from the top. Last words, Es HaKruvim, says Rashi, Maloche chavala, destructive angels. That's strange. What did the Rashi say over here? The Cherubim are. They got these innocent children. So this goes to the entire theme of what these Cherubim are. You have an Aron Kodesh, which is the Torah. On the Torah, you have a Kapparas, you have the Cherubim, with their wings pointing upwards, which obviously represents yearning for growth. Where are they? They're right on top of the Torah. If you raise children on Torah and Torah values, then you're going to end up with these innocent-looking children with this beautiful face. If you raise children in Gan Eden, you raise them out in a field with no rules and no regulations, then they're going to be destructive angels, right? If you raise children on Torah, you ever see these little Hasidic children in the cheder with their little curly payas and their fat little cheeks and they're with the Rabbi marching through Mea Shearim? They're cute as buttons. Right? There's a purity, there's a kedusha over there. You can sense it's a tangible kedusha. You walk into a public school, unfortunately, you see the kids in public school, the Israeli public school system where they have not yet become Baalei Jews. You see these kids on the buses. Now you see these kids on the buses. The secular state schools, they did a survey, 50% of the kids have these plastic box cutters. They walk around with these plastic box cutters. You know what those are? Those knives that go fold in. They're plastic. Those, right? And of those 33% have those plastic box cutters. And of those 33%, 50% said that they carry them in self-defense. Right? So if you're devoid of Torah values, the sky's the limit. You don't have in a cheder. There are never any. Nobody's got weapons. None of the kids have weapons in a cheder, except on Purim where they carry a toy gun. Right? And none of the kids are doing drugs, right, in a cheder. None of the kids are doing drugs, and the kids aren't shooting anybody, and the kids aren't, what do you call it? They're not violent. The worst crime in a cheder is the kid refuses to bench. It's a difference, and that's what the Torah is telling you over here, that the Cherubim are on the Kapparas. The Cherubim are on the Kapparas representing the growth, and that's why they're one piece with the Kapparas. They're chiseled out one piece to represent, it grows out of Torah. This is what grows out of Torah. And it grows out of the Aron Kodesh. Okay, hold all the questions. I want to cover some ground here, and we'll take the questions later. Think about the concepts. Take a look at Pasuk Chaf Gimel. V'asisa shulchan atzei shitim. You make the shulchan out of shitim wood. Okay, now there's a tremendous amount of, what do you call it, in this shulchan. V'asisa shulchan atzei shitim. Amasayim orko ve'ama rochbo ve'ama v'chetzi kabasa. So we pointed out the significance of the broken dimension in the vertical direction, which represents material. The shulchan is to the left over there. You see the shulchan, and the shulchan is very, very small. If you see that, those boards and what do you call it? Those metal with tubes that connect them. That's in order to put the showbreads on them. And they put the 12 showbreads, which represents prosperity. So we spoke about the idea that the vertical dimension, one should see himself as incomplete when it comes to spending on heavenly things, on mitzvahs, on tefillin, on mezuzahs, that one should always, try to spend nicely, try to spend generously. V'tzipisa oso zahav tar, v'sisalo zer zahav saviv. You should make a gold crown around this shulchan. Now, pay attention very carefully to the words. Ve'asisalo misgeres tofach saviv. You should make, how does the article translate misgeres? A molding of one handbreadth around. Now, the mold, a misgeres means what we would call a frame. It should be a frame. Ve'asisa zer zahav lemisgarto saviv. And you should make a gold crown. A zer is like a crown. You look in the picture, you can see the crown is indicated over there. The little squiggly that looks like a crown in the picture. So the commentaries point out, it's very interesting because this shulchan represents material success, right? The showbreads, there are 12 showbreads, and the bread is the basic form of materialism. The bracha comes to 12 breads and spreads out to the 12 tribes. Yet, what does the Torah say? Make a misgeres. What's a misgeres? A misgeres is a frame. But it comes from the word lisgor, to close. What's the Torah telling you? That when it comes to your material possessions, try to keep it closed. Try to keep it controlled. Keep your material possessions controlled, and then you make a gold crown around it. That means that's a crowning achievement for a person, that a person can control their material, their base, their physical drives, and their material desires. That means that if you have, the goal isn't to accumulate more. You have what you need, and then with what you need, you make a misgarret. You should live a controlled life in the material realm, and there should be the real goals should be to accumulate in the spiritual realm. Then, ve'asisa lo arba tabe ozav. There are 4 rings on the corners. Now we said that the rings on the Aron Kodesh represent the never-ending reward in the world to come. Okay, that's one of the symbols of a ring. Here, the commentaries point out the rings on the shulchan are to remind us of something else. The Gemara says poverty. We're talking about material. We're talking about wealth over. We're talking about material accumulation. The Gemara uses an expression. Poverty is a galgal hachozer ba'olam. It's a cycle that goes around in the world. You never know who's going to be rich and who's going to be. You have very rich people who their kids ended up poor. You have poor people who they ended up rich, right? You never expected. People came from Europe after the Holocaust and they got into a certain business. They became rich. You have other people who are rich and one way or another they managed to lose a lot of money. Their kids ended up poor. It's a cycle. There's no guarantee. It's not because somebody was rich your kids are going to be rich. You have plenty of people in the world who are very wealthy, their kids ended up broke, or their grandchildren ended up broke. It's a cycle that goes around the world. Therefore, the Torah is telling you over here, you have a shulchan, you've got a table with your material. Just remember that it's not necessary, and therefore make sure that you use it in order to give tzedakah and support others, so that if your descendants become poor, other people will support them. Because nothing is guaranteed in this world. There are plenty of people in this world who became rich, plenty you wouldn't have expected. There are plenty of people who went broke even after they had money. They went broke with bad investments and that sort of thing. Now, watch this. This next part is a remarkable idea here. 3 lines from the bottom. Facing the misgeras. What did I tell you the misgeras? The border should be the rings. Now watch this. Libotim levadim. The rings should be the, how does he translate it? The housings for staves. Literally, levotim levadim. So if this is the pole and this is the ring, the pole goes into the ring. The pole goes into the ring. This is like the house of the ring. And what we would call, what's a better word for it? No,
Casing?
The casing, when you put something into something else, the thing that it's in is the station or the place. It's the place of the ring, of the poles. The poles, in other words, you have poles on the shulchan. They have to go into the rings. That's the, no, help me out, guys. We're on the air over here. Help me out. What is, huh?
Holders?
The holders, excellent. They're the hold. There you go, the holders, right? Okay, the holders. That's exactly what I was thinking of. What a sophisticated word. So the rings are the holders of the poles. Now, what does that mean? Listen to this. Watch this. And then he says, "Lasei says hashulchan," in order to carry the table. So one of the Farshim says, "Batim" means your house. In your house should be, poor people are lonely. Poor people are lonely. They're down and out. Most people who are poor, and they need to ask her, when you see them coming, you go in the other direction. If I see him, he's going to be asking me for money now, right? You move it. Rich people are very popular. A rich man walks in, everybody crowds around. A rich man laughs at his jokes. They're so witty and clever, right? They're just one man. If he's a regular guy, he's an eccentric. If he's rich, he's witty, right? That's the difference between being rich and not. Right? Anyways, a regular guy is a nut. He's a nut. This guy is just, he's extremely lively because he's rich, right? It's a completely different set of rules for the rich people. And when a rich guy walks in, do you know that it says, I think in the, one of the musar, I think the Orchos Tzadikim, if I'm not mistaken, says, if you're a member of a community and you've got a good idea for the community, something that can help the community, so the Orchos said, the musar Svarim say, tell it over to either a Torah scholar or a wealthy man to bring up the idea. Because the Torah scholar people may listen to, And the wealthy man, for sure, they'll listen to, right? They're not going to listen to, right? Every cab driver in Israel knows how to fix the economy here. Every cab driver in Israel knows exactly what to do in order to the country should do a little better. You're right, because he's got a lot of time to think about it in his cab. Yeah, but if Warren Buffett would visit Israel and make a few comments about the economy, I was like, Warren Buffett, everybody's listening to Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett actually once put out an air. He said, anybody who works for me, you should pay me $10,000 for the privilege of working for me. So a Jewish kid from Canada sent in a letter. He said, I'm willing to pay you $10,000. I want to apprentice by you. He liked his attitude. He hired the guy. He brought him in, didn't make him pay, and he hired the guy. Right? Because he liked his attitude. That's Warren Buffett's that type. Well, a poor man talks. When a rich man talks, and a rich man walks, everybody's like crowded around. We're hoping it rubs off on us. Something. Maybe it'll rub off on me. And even more than that. When a rich man's in the room, you're always just hoping that all of a sudden he's going to turn around and say, I like you, right? And I want you to be my vice president. We're just hoping. We're just hoping, all right? True or not true? Right? When a rich guy's in, maybe, here I am. Right? Done it. Hasn't happened yet. Right? Maybe I'm not hanging around with the right rich people. At the end of the day, lebatim, make your house, levadim, for the poor people, those who are alone. That's what you should do with your shulchan. Make your home for the poor. It alludes to the idea, your home, your bias should be levadim. Don't just bring in society's winners. Bring in the lonely people, the people who are bedraggled down and out. And you know what the result of that will be? Laseis esa shulchan. That's what's going to carry your table. That means when you give tzedakah, tzedakah runs contrary to all of our instincts. It doesn't make sense that I should work and give you money. It's not logical. It is what the Torah calls even B'nai Noach, the people of Sodom are criticized for not giving tzedakah, because there is something intuitive. We understand intuitively. People who have should help out the have-nots. But it's not logical. Why should I give you? I worked for the money. I earned the money. Why should I give you the money? So they tell a story. A guy goes into the post office to send a letter. So the guy says to him, the letter's too heavy. You're going to have to put on more stamps. He says, yeah, but then it's going to be heavier. The package is too heavy. Put on more stamps to make it heavier. Right? It doesn't make any sense, right? The answer is, when it comes to tzedakah, if you give 10%, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you. If you give 20%, you get more. The Gemara says, melach mamon chaser. If you want to salt your money, which means what? Kosher. Not kosher it. Yeah, kosher money is good too. We'll see about that over here. You want to preserve your money, decrease it. Completely counterintuitive, completely illogical. You want to increase your money, give away more. That doesn't increase. In my book, giving away means I have less. But the way it works is if HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the person is giving away his money, so if you give away, in other words, like this, let's say a guy earns $100,000 a year, $100,000. He gives away $10,000 to tzedakah. So Hashem says, you know what, listen, I need somebody to distribute money. You're doing a good job. Next year he gives him $100,000 again. And again he gives $10,000. He says, I like your consistency. And again he gives $100,000. The guy says, you know what, I'm going to roll the dice this time. I think I could do a little better. And he gives away 20%. He says, oh, that I like. That I like. I've been waiting for a guy like you for a while. Because I got a lot of poor people who need money. I'm giving you $250,000. Next year he makes $250,000. Guy takes $250,000. He gives away 20%, $50,000. He says, you're good. Next year he gives him $800,000. $800,000, he makes a calculation. I got to weigh $160,000. Whoa, that's some serious grease there. No. I think we're going to cut that down. Bad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu cuts him down. He get cut down. I had a bad year, so he cuts down even more. So he cuts him down even more. We are essentially distributors for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I knew a guy who, do you remember I think it was in the 80s, they had the big savings loan scandal in the United States. I don't remember exactly what. You remember it, Martin? Yeah. I don't know exactly what was going on, but a lot of people made a lot of money very quickly, and a lot of people ended up in jail because they made this money very quickly. So I knew a guy who was actually called in by the FBI. He was called in by the FBI, and even to this day, whenever I call him up, I'll call him up, he'll answer the phone, I'll say hello, I say, hi, this is Jim Clark, Federal Bureau of Investigation, could I speak to Mr. Abrams? It's not his name, there's always a hesitation on the phone, like what? And don't worry, he's a Giants fan, so he's got it coming. But the what do you call it? So I asked this guy once, I knew the guy made a few $1 million, he made good money. So I said to him, how much money did you make? I asked the guy how much money he made on the savings and loan thing, and he barely got away from the FBI. He got away. He was called in for an investigation. He got out of it. So I asked him, he said to me he had one real good year where he had to write out a check to the United States government for 7 figures. 7 figures. That means if you're paying 7 figures, you got a good lawyer, and you're paying 7 figures, that means he must have made that year alone a good $4 or $5 million, right? So he told me that he called his father up and he said to his father, I think I'm going to have to leave the country. I can't write that check. I just cannot write out a check 7 figures to the United States government. Right? So I don't know in the end if he did or not. I don't know in the end what happened. But he said that it was hard. So, to part with your money, let's say shulchan, but that's what carries your table. You part with your money, that's what carries the table. Okay? That's what the Torah is teaching. Somebody had a question earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
It was from Gan Eden thing.
Yeah.
You're saying that
It's symbolic. It's symbolic. It's not a tosos. It's symbolic. Just the idea that.
No, I'm asking on the symbolism. Don't we see Gan Eden as like a kind
We
of
can't
symbol?
ask on symbolism. The symbolism is a tapestry. Either you hear it or you don't. He's just saying a concept. He's just trying to show you a parallel. Here it's on the Torah, and here it's out in the fields. Obviously, it's not a Gemara it's a symbol. It's an idea. It's a concept to take the idea and realize, take the message from it. The message is keep your kids educated on Torah. That's the message. Okay. Yes, please. Your name is?
Miguel.
Miguel, yeah, go ahead.
Is it true that when giving tzedakah, you don't always get it back, like physically, like as money, but you get it in like another way?
That's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says you get it one way or another. You're going to get it back. Now, listen, you could get it back in ways that you don't know. It could be that your wife does something with the washing machine, which under normal circumstances would cause it to break, and because you gave tzedakah, it survived. So you don't even know, because sometimes women with washing machines they do funny things. She sometimes she put the stender into the washing machine to try to wash it, and you're wondering, why did it break? She put she put a couple of dishes in the washing machine. They could do funny things, ladies. So you don't even know where it could be. But generally, the way it says, this is the one area we're allowed to test HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says uvechanuni na bezos. We are allowed to test HaKadosh Baruch Hu by giving money and testing Hashem. I want to see the results. I want to see the results. I'm giving 20%. I want to see the results. We're allowed to test. Whereas in other areas, we can't test HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how we'll see it, and will we see it ourselves? Maybe the next generation will see it. I don't know. But and we're talking about cash. Talk about cash. For other things, other things that say American dollars. That's what I mean. I don't know shekels. American dollars. We're talking about serious cash, right? That's what the Gemara says. Okay, one second. I just want to get to what he said earlier. If you take a look at the very last pasuk over here, in pasuk page 450, where it's the top line of 450, so it describes the various utensils that were used by the shulchan. Excuse me. It says ve'asisa ke'arosav. How does he translate it? It's dishes. The kaposav, the spoons, uksosav, umenakiosav, the shelving tubes and the pillars. Now, these are all various utensils that were used in the shulchan and in the service. But one of the commentaries says, again in the back, what's the name? What's your first name? Israel. Israel's pointed out the word umenakiosav, which he translates as the pillars. What's the root of that word? Anybody see the Hebrew root of that word? Menakiosav.
What's the translation?
What's the root of the word? Naki. What's naki? Clean. So one of the commentaries says that's what the Torah ends the story of the shulchan by telling you, make sure your money is clean. Make sure your money is clean. Make sure the money that you earn is clean. Right? That it should that your material wealth should be clean. Okay. So then, somebody question. Go ahead, man.
Going back to the tzedakah point, does it matter how you actually give the tzedakah? So like if you did it in like a way that you want to get covered from it.
The Gemara says that the person gives tzedakah with ulterior motivation. It's called a tzaddik gomor. And if you're going to give tzedakah because you want a plaque or you want that, perfectly okay. It's better not to do that, but it's perfectly acceptable. Just get the money out of your pockets, right? We're talking about Jews. Get the money out of your pockets. Jews are the most generous people in the world, but it's still hard to get money. It's hard. And if a person is willing to give money, he's allowed. There's more than that. It's because sometimes they even encourage it. They encourage you to get a plaque so that other people will see that you got honor. So that there's a lot of people who have plaques who don't want the plaques. You know, they have these yeshivas always make dinners, fundraisers, and they want somebody, we're honoring certain people. There are a lot of people who don't want, they have trouble finding honorees. They actually have trouble finding honorees. It's not like, hi, hello, everybody. They have trouble finding honorees. They said, we want you to do us a favor, be an honoree, so other people will see it. Maybe they'll see what you get out of it. Look, you got a guy like Schottenstein, right? The Schottenstein Gemaras, right? The art school, the Schottenstein. So I heard of Schottenstein before any of you guys did, because my wife's from Columbus. My wife's from Columbus, Ohio, which is where the original Schottenstein family was from. So I had heard of Schottenstein before anybody in the world heard of Schottenstein. My wife actually babysat for one of the Schottenstein families, right? And what do you call it? Then the art school decided they're going to translate, the art school decided to translate the Gemara, the Shas, and they approached various people who weren't interested in the project. And the Schottensteins got involved, and now became a world famous name. That was part of their reward for giving tzedakah. They look at besides the merit of other people learning Gemara now because of them, they that's the benefit. You got to grab the opportunity. You got to grab the opportunity. Sometimes, you get an opportunity. Sometimes you mess up. Somebody else grabbed it. And I'm sure that there are people who are kicking themselves. I have no doubt that there are wealthy people kicking themselves that they had the chance and they didn't grab it. And the Schottensteins did. And I'm sure there are people kicking themselves. They would have acquired their world. This world, they would have acquired eternity. And no doubt people are kicking themselves. Okay. Take a look at the, one more point here. If you look at the Lechem HaPonim, where's the pasuk? 1 second. Pasuk Lamed. On the next page, 450. Sorry, where we were, the very next slide. It says, you make the Menach Yosef, it should be clean. And then look at the last pasuk, 3 lines from the top. V'nasata al hashulchan lechem ponim lefanai tamid. So you put the lechem haponim on the table. Now the breads were basically shaped like this. This is all dough. They're basically shaped like this. And it was a very, very difficult. It was a secret how you bake bread and get the sides to stay up in the air. And there was a family at the time of the Beis Hamikdash who knew how to do it. The Beis Garmu, who knew how to bake the breads, and they wouldn't tell anybody the secret. And the Chachamim called them in and said, listen, this is doesn't reflect well on you. They said, no, the reason we don't tell you the secret is because somebody may take it and they may bake breads like this and use them to serve idols. Mm-hmm. There's another family called the Beis Avtinas who knew how to make the kapores, the incense. And they wouldn't give away the secret because there's a way to make the incense burn, and the fire of the incense went straight up like a pillar, like the smoke went up like a pillar. And they had a certain blade of grass, some sort of a blade, some sort of weed or blade of grass that they put in that caused it to grow the fire to go up a certain way, and they wouldn't tell anybody what it was. And the Chachamim called them in and asked them, what's going on? They said that they don't want idol worshippers. They used to burn incense all the time, and idol worshippers used to. So they didn't want it being used for being misused. And then the Gemara says that the people from Beis Garmu who baked the breads at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, their kids, the family never ate white bread, pure white bread, so that nobody should feel that they're nipping from the lechem haponim. And the people from Beis Avtinas who made the ketoros had a very potent smell. The Gemara says that the ketoros in the Beis Hamikdash, you could smell it in your richo. The Gemara says that the ketoros was so potent, a bride in Yerushalayim did not have to perfume herself because of the ketoros, and none of their wives and brides ever perfumed themselves so that nobody should say that they're nipping at the Ketores. And we learn from here, V'yisam Nekiyim, you should always maintain a clean reputation. Don't do anything that's gonna cause suspicion. And so the lechem aponim was shaped like this. So the commentaries explain this lechem aponim with any imagination at all, right? Does this look like a frown or a smile? It looks like a box, right? That's why I say with any imagination at all. It certainly looks more in the direction of a smile than a frown, right? So since we're talking about tzedakah, Nate, you were asking about giving. How does it matter? One of the most important aspects of tzedakah is that you give it with a sever panim nafos. You have to give it with a friendly countenance to the poor man. And if you give it with if you grumble or you give it with a sour face, the Gemara says better you shouldn't have given it at all. Now that doesn't absolve you. Oh, well, I'm a sour face, so I'm not giving. Just walk around with a sour face. You have to give. That's what Gemara is saying. Gemara is saying that you have to give it and give it friendly. And if you didn't give it friendly, but you don't have a choice, you have to give it. It's not like, okay, I'm in a rotten mood. One second, I'm going into Gula now. I'm going into Malchei Yisrael Street where you have to pay the Malchei Yisrael street tax. Okay, watch this. Walk around with okay, I'm free of paying the tzedakah. I'll get you one second, I'm free of paying the tzedakah. That's what it's saying. It's saying when you give it, make sure you give it with a friendly face. Make sure you give it with a smile. That's the symbolism. That's the symbolism of lechem aponim. Yeah.
So I've noticed present day when you have an option to donate online, you can just go to PayPal, donate $40 to whatever organization. But there's not a great feeling to that. It's just cool, money gone. Is there a difference of taking the $40 in cash and doing it in person, seeing the person benefit?
Interesting question. Very interesting question. It's a very interesting question. I didn't know people make online donations. I certainly wouldn't. Goodness knows who would. No, I don't know who it's going to. I have no idea what's going on online. It's like online gambling. I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know what I've never online gambled either. But it just kiss your money goodbye. I imagine. Who knows what's going on over there. So the rule with tzedakah is you only give it to a legitimate organization that you know is a legitimate organization. You don't give it and somebody knocking on your door, somebody coming around, you give a minimal donation. There's a certain halacha. First of all, we don't know who he's collecting for. You don't know if it's a true story. You don't know what the story is. You have to find somebody. There are plenty of legitimate organizations that you could give if you have a large sum of money to give it to legitimate organization. You never give away large sums of money to somebody who you don't know. And not only that, the halacha says if somebody is going door to door, so he's already going to be doing okay because he's already gotten past the embarrassment of going door to door. So he'll don't give him a large donation. And you certainly do not give to anyone, no matter what the sob story is. No matter what the sob story is, you do not give a significant sum of money unless you have somebody who you could trust, who you know can vouch for this organization. All right, see you tomorrow, guys.